Today I want to talk about Oklahoma, Texas, why they would want to leave the Big 12, and what are the steps that would have to happen for that. And we'll touch a little bit on the SEC. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time today. I have made a brief stop back home before I get back on a plane to go out to Los Angeles to cover Pac-12 Media Days. Many of you will know that yesterday I was at Big 10 Media Days where I got to talk with Ryan Day, Zach Harrison, Jeremy Ruckert, and others, along with Tanner Morgan, who was awesome, and every single Big 10 coach and three players per team. So 14 times 3, I believe is 42, plus the 14 coaches. Yeah, I did a lot of interviews over 2 days in the Big 10, and I was very happy to do it. It's at Lucas Oil Stadium, and I had a ball. It's the first time I was ever able to cover Big 10 Media Days, not Big 12. And it'll be the first time I've ever been able to cover Pac-12 Media Day. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And, of course, those Big 10 Media Day specials will come out on the number one ranked show on Monday and Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Time zones are messing me up. But I wanted to do a upload today because I get asked to unpack this quite a bit. And I was actually talking with Laurel, who's doing my hair, about OU and Texas and the Big 12 because, she's under the impression, like many, that Oklahoma and Texas would be headed to the SEC. And I've told y'all and I told her, I don't think that that's necessarily true. But I also don't think that if it is true, that it doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I don't necessarily think it's true. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I've unpacked that particular thought in one of a previous video that you can check on the channel. But I wanted to get at this today because Dennis Dodd broke some interesting news today about the Big 12 not saying die, because even after finding out that OU and Texas had reached out to the SEC and wanted to have conversations, many thought the Big 12 would explode. It still might explode. And he reported today that they were prepared to up their revenue share if they decided to stay to something like 1.5, which would be like $60 million. For perspective there, OU and Texas bring in about get about $38 million in revenue from Big 12 and its contracts, but you look at the Big 10, it's about $54 million per school, right? But I don't really want to talk about the money so much as I want to talk about conferences and why we're talking about OU and Texas leaving the Big 12, joining the SEC, and what that actually means. And it comes back to, I think, as much as I don't want to necessarily make it about this, television contracts. Because in 1984, OU and Georgia sued the NCAA for the right to pick a game, because before that, the NCAA had sole discretion over who played college football on a Saturday. Some of y'all are too young to know this. Some of y'all are old enough to remember this. There was one televised college football game on a Saturday, and the contract was to ABC. But when they sued saying, hey, you should not have the monopoly on picking who plays, and we should be able to get our own games nationally televised. So the major programs created what is called the College Football Association, and they wanted to do their own television contracts and revenue deals. And this is why you keep hearing about people saying the Power Five will break off from FBS and form their own league and form their own national championship, because it's kind of what they did like 40 years ago, right? So we got the implosion of the Southwest Conference and the implosion of the Big Eight, in large part due to that, because we want to see OU and Texas play every year. And we don't want it to be left up to chance when it's going to happen. We would like to see OU and Nebraska play every year. And we would like to see other traditional rivalries not get really held up by who's in what conference. So you create a conference that holds those things together. So Southwest Conference implodes. 4 Texas teams end up joining up with 8 Big 8 teams, and we get the Big 12 in 1996. But since that time, Oklahoma and Texas have been carrying the load on the football field and off. But on the football field is what we're really talking about. So when you think about it this way, Oklahoma and Texas have won national championships in the Big 12. Nobody else in the Big 12 has. No matter how you want to cut it up, Oklahoma has run this league. And a reason you might want to leave is you're tired of being married to your partner. Okay? And I'm using this analogy like purposefully. Think of a conference as a family that you marry into or you form a union with. And if you find that you are unequally yoked, that you are doing more to provide and make this family go and exist than your partner or partners, to make this polygamous, you might want to go searching for a new partner or partners. The reason the SEC is so strong is because Alabama never actually has to ask that question. Like, we all know that if Alabama wanted to be an independent like Notre Dame, it would work for them because they have enough of an alumni base and they have the capability of winning a championship every year. But what Alabama gets to say is 8 out of the last 15 national champions have come out of the SEC. So when they don't win it, about half the time, one of the teams they play is going to win it. Okay? So you get the benefit of playing in an extremely strong conference. And when you put it in those terms, you understand how Alabama can look at the SEC for the most part and say they carry their load, right? You look at the Big 12, you can't necessarily say that on the field. Kansas State has had some good years. Texas Christian had some good years. Baylor had some good years. Oklahoma State, everybody, Iowa State has had some good years, but nobody has won a national championship or made the playoff except Oklahoma. And then you think about what you're competing against, right? And I think for Oklahoma fans in particular, the reason that this is really getting on their nerves and the reason they want out is they can win the conference over and over again. They can't necessarily get past the college football playoff team that it's usually going to be Clemson or the SEC. Perhaps joining that conference makes you sharper, gives you a recruiting edge, right? Maybe it even provides you more money, though I'm not necessarily that sure that's the case and the reason you should do anything. But there are plenty of reasons for why you might look at OU and Texas and say, oh, okay, they don't just want to run that conference. They would very much like to have partners that can, keep up with them, just like you would in your dating life and in your married life. And I think when you look at it through that prism, them deciding if they do decide to file the divorce papers in the form of an exit letter makes a lot of sense, right? It also makes sense that the Big 12 would do everything in its capability to keep those two in its conference, because you could see the conference being picked off really easily if that hasn't happened. And we know that OU and Texas have both flirted with doing this 10 years ago. So I have more reason to believe they're going to leave the Big 12. What I don't have more reason to believe is they're going to join someone else post-haste. And if they do, that it's necessarily going to be the SEC, because Big 10, Pac-12, both are pretty good landing spots. I've seen a good argument for the ACC. And then there's another path over there that I think is really interesting that kind of looks like Notre Dame. But I wanted to do this really quick because I keep getting asked, why would OU and Texas want to leave, from people that aren't OU and Texas fans. But I also wanted to say that Texas A&M has been stomping their feet because they don't want another Texas team in the SEC any more than anybody wants another Texas team in the Big 12. It's a common theme. We've got enough Texas teams in the Big 12. We don't want any more. And I'm sure A&M loves being the only Texas team in the Big 12. And I thought Eli Drinkwitz was telling on himself when he said, hey, I know everybody wants to be in this league, but good luck getting in. Well, they let you in. Sorry, y'all ain't done much of anything since getting in there. Neither is A&M for that matter. And Vanderbilt gets to say, hey, we've been here for a very long time, and we're academically the reason you want to keep us. And, oh, yeah, baseball, we're pretty doggone good. And every blue moon, James Franklin will actually turn them into a program that you got to worry about. But when you take all that into account, a lot of this starts to make a bit more sense. But there are steps that need to take place for them to join the SEC. One is they got to announce they want to exit. Two is they got to get an invitation from the SEC. And three, they got to choose to join it. That's a lot that you got to do in a very short amount of time, if that's what you want to do in a very short amount of time. But you also have the benefit of time, right? Your contract with the Big 12, or I should say the Big 12's television contract, doesn't come up for another few years, so you got some time. And as much as I don't want to make it about the money when we talk about stuff on the field and the road to the college football playoff, I don't think it should matter all that much for you or for me, because when I say Nebraska, Arkansas would have more fun in the Big 12, I'm not necessarily talking about money. I'm talking about play. I'm talking about it's a more competitive league for them. I don't see how you get much out of being mediocre in what you think is a superb league. I would like to have fun. I'd like to go win, right? And then if you put together a squad that can run the table and say the American, then you get to go test your might against an SEC opponent in a 12-team playoff or even a 16-team playoff. I hope that was helpful to you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Doses.